everybody. Welcome to another episode of Two Strike Noise, your pretty much weekly baseball history podcast. We took a week off, kind of unexpected last week, but we're back, and I am one half of the show. My name is Jeff. Joining me back again from a life of luxury and indulgence, it's my co-host Mark A. Johnston. Mark, welcome back to our... You know, it's usually a pretty luxurious studio, but I think you right now, it looks pretty dingy.
Yeah, it was tough to come back to my version of reality. But as we were discussing, to me, reality is more of a concept.
All right. Well, did you think about baseball while you were, lapping up all of the free drinks and all the other bonuses?
I did think about baseball, but they couldn't get any of the games in on any of the TVs. It was all rugby.
And there was no internet there, apparently.
Yeah, but they only let you use it for so long.
They only let you use it for rugby.
Yeah, using the internet on a cruise ship can get expensive.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see if we can get your land legs back with you here, and let's talk about some baseball that you might have missed while you were gone. I don't know.
I may have.
All right, well, let's get into our BP segment. You probably really do need this. I haven't seen a live pitch for a while, so let's get you some BP here. It's been like maybe half a show since we mentioned Lars Nootbaar, so we should probably warm you up with a little bit of Lars news.
Lars update.
Yeah, Lars update. So Japan celebrated the birth of the first Japanese macaw this year. Macaw. It's not a bird. It's a monkey. It's a macaw. Is that?
Yeah, I think it's macaw.
Macaw. All right. Well, they had their first birth of one in captivity this year, and they took a public vote. There were 948 votes cast, which doesn't seem like a lot, but you know what? They had a winner anyway. With 42. So, okay, 948 votes. The winning name received 42 votes. So
pretty spread out.
They received a lot of names, apparently. But the winner was Peppermill. Followed with 34 points by Pepper. Then 29 votes for Samurai, and then 25 for Mill. So the top four all were related to either Lars Nootbaar just in general or to the Japanese team from the WBC.
He's Larser than life.
Wow. You know, there you saved that one up for vacation. You came back with a bang. It's only downhill from there.
Yeah, I'm out of here. See ya.
Here's a quote from one of the zoo staff members. Didn't want to be named, apparently. Quote, although a monkey can't become a baseball player, which I'm pretty sure there's a couple of movies where that happens, we hope Peppermill will grow up to be bright and cheerful like Nootbaar. It probably said Nootbaar's son, right?
Yeah. I think of Nootbaar, I think of bright and cheerful.
Yeah. So congratulations to the Japanese people. You've done it. You've named a monkey after Lars Nootbaar.
Which I didn't see coming.
No, I didn't. I mean, if this was America, it would be like Macawy face or, yes, something like exactly. That. So give him a little bit of props for originality. Let's stay in Japan for this next story. Mark, a couple of weeks ago, 78-year-old Fujo Sakai and 52-year-old Hideki Dejuki were arrested for unlawful entry when they entered Koshien Stadium to watch the home team Tigers take on the Occult Swallows. Why were they arrested, you might ask?
Jeff, why were they arrested?
Well, the NPB blackballed the Yakuza members way back in 2003. Yakuza members were allegedly running various rackets often associated with the team's most popular cheering sections, where they would have homeless people line up for tickets and then sell them to diehard fans for about 3 times the price.
Oh,
Both Fujio and Hideki are kind of well known, I guess, amongst the police, at least Yakuza members.
Grifters.
There is actually a sign at Koshien Stadium at the entrance stating that members of organized crime were not permitted to enter. Because if there's one thing that we know will stop a member of the Yakuza, it's probably a sign.
Yeah, oh, yeah, they'll walk right through that.
Yeah, well, the thing is, they did walk right past it. They probably thumbed their noses at it. And then after the game, who's waiting at their car for these two guys? The police.
Yep.
So they had allegedly parked in a space that was not allowed. That's what did them in. Just like Al Capone's taxes. These guys tried to park where they weren't supposed to go see a baseball game.
Well, that just seems silly.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if this sign, if it's just got the word yakuza with a line through it.
Yes, yakuza busters.
Or is there like a profile of a man that looks kind of shifty with a line through it? I don't know. It's essentially like putting salt in front of a slug. Like they just won't go beyond that salt.
No, that stop them dead in their tracks.
Yeah. And you know, they found out the hard way that those signs mean business. So.
That's right.
A couple of weeks ago, I mentioned some weird minor league team names and made up some because I'm just convinced it's just a couple of hats with a bunch of nouns and verbs and adjectives in it, and they just pull it out to name these teams. I found a new name I'd never heard before.
Oh.
The Pistol Shrimps.
Okay.
Now, tell me those aren't just two random nouns that they put together and said, hey, let's
Sounds like it to me.
That name made me laugh for some reason. I don't know. But
that is pretty classic.
Okay, so I saw this on social media. It was a list of best statistics, the top 25 with the best top 25 players with the best statistics swinging at the first pitch.
Okay, interesting.
So this was not tracked until 1988. So that gives you an idea of the kind of names. This is like this couldn't make us, I think, here on Two Strike Noise happier. These are the kind of names that we love to talk about. So first of all, leading the way in batting average with .419 is Mike Trout.
Wow. Of course it's Mike Trout.
And then just listen to this names. It goes Jim Thome, Miguel Cabrera, Joe Mauer, Juan Gonzalez, Edgar, Jeter, Manny. See, I just have to list one names here, and you know who these are.
That's right.
Let's see. Mr. Padre, Bags, Chef, Ichiro, Noma, Mattingly, Big Papi, Junior, Big Mac. Look at that. Almost everyone in this list has one, like Cher, Madonna, or Ricky.
Yeah, it's that's quite a who's who, but only of one name.
Who do you think has the most home runs
on the first pitch?
Yeah.
I got to go with Trout. It's the simple, easy guess.
Actually, probably second to last.
Oh, wow.
Number one, Mark McGwire. 124. Then Barry Bonds, 122. Then A-Rod with 114. There seems to be some link there between those three.
I'm getting something that's linking them. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, maybe our listeners can put something together there. After that, though, it gets a little bit cleaner, at least as far as we know. It goes Junior and then Miguel Cabrera with 109, 108. Everybody else is under 100 after that, but still some great names.
You know what? It's funny. People come up with these crazy stats, and I'm always interested.
There is not a name on here that we haven't mentioned probably more than a dozen times. Well, maybe Joe Mauer. Maybe we haven't talked about Joe Mauer that much. He's never come up in Wax Pack's Heroes.
Yeah, maybe we should talk about Joe Mauer.
Yeah, I don't know. He's probably going to go in the Hall of Fame.
Well, we are right now.
Well, yeah, so there's one. All right.
Okay, yeah, we got a reference.
Yeah, there we go. Mark, you and I are old, right?
Oh,
I mean,
very.
That list just kind of did you see last week when Rich Hill took the mound for the Pirates against the Tigers and he faced the aforementioned Miguel Cabrera?
I did not see that.
Yeah, so they face each other. This is 2023, last time I checked the calendar. They first faced each other in 2005. That's a long time ago. That's almost 20 years ago. I think if Miggy could face Rich Hill more often, he might not retire after this year. He's hitting .421 against Rich.
Aye. Well,
you know what Rich Hill's nickname is, of course?
Over the?
Dick Mountain. Which just cracks me up because I'm a 13-year-old every time I hear it. Right. Something I was going to mention last week, but we didn't record a show. Unfortunately, longtime umpire Don Denkinger passed away last week. He was 86 years old. Probably best known, or maybe most infamously known, for calling Jorge Orta safe in Game 6 of the World Series between the Cardinals and the Royals. Despite that, big gaffe, he still worked many other big games, including World Series after that, and he really owned up to that call. Very similar to Jim Joyce, who, blew the call for Armando Galarraga, who, should have had a perfect game. But like Denkinger, Jim Joyce owned up to it. He admits he made a mistake. You'll never see like Angel Hernandez do that or C.B. Buckner. But
yeah, right.
Unfortunately, he passed away. He was also behind the plate for 2 perfect games.
Oh, wow.
Len Barker's in 1981 and Kenny Rogers in 1994. So RIP for Don Denkinger. Mark, this show is debuting on May 24th, so we do have some debuts that happened today throughout history. First of all, in 1989, so not too far back, David Justice made his debut for Atlanta. That's definitely somebody we've talked about quite a bit on this.
Yes.
I think he's one of those guys we've pulled in Wax Packs Heroes a ton, so we've covered him a lot. Replaced Dale Murphy in right field for that team for Atlanta. So those are big shoes to fill, but boy, I think he did a good job.
Oh, he did quite well. I agree. He had a heck of a career.
So when he made his debut in 89, he only appeared in 16 games. The next year, he showed up in 127 and was the Rookie of the Year. Also finished 24th in MVP voting. Beat Delino DeShields out. I mean, it wasn't close. He received 98% of the first place votes. But following up was Delino DeShields, Hal Morris, and then John Burkett, Mike Harkey.
Oh.
Wow, there's a name I hadn't heard of for a while. Todd Zeal, then Marquise Grissom, and there's a Hall of Famer, Larry Walker. Larry Walker received 1 vote as Rookie of the Year. I think he did okay, though. But
yeah, he had a good career.
Yeah, he did that. Of course, Dave Justice, beyond just being a great baseball player, Rookie of the Year, 3-time All-Star, 2-time World Series champion, ALCS MVP. Wow, he played a lot in the postseason, 112 games.
Wow.
In the postseason. That is, bordering on a whole major league season.
That's saying something, I tell you.
2/3 of a major league season he played in the postseason. So he did a good job. Of course, he was on the Oakland Athletics. Member of the Moneyball Athletics.
He was.
And let's see, traded by the Braves with Marquise Grissom to Cleveland for Alan Embry and Kenny Lofton. Of course, we've talked about his pop culture appearances. He was on an episode of The Young and the Restless, and he was played by Stephen Bishop, who, when somebody tells me Stephen Bishop's name now, I can go, oh, well, he played David Justice in the movie version of Moneyball.
That's right.
Still don't really know who Stephen Bishop is. Also was on an episode of Celebrity Wife Swap, which I think the Yankees did a couple of decades earlier, if I'm not mistaken. So.
Yes, they were the originals.
Yes, they were the original wife swappers. And in 1994, Justice was listed in People's 50 Most Beautiful People, similar to you and I last year.
Yes, that wasn't the same year.
We finally cracked the list last year.
Yeah, it's about time.
Weren't they going to send us like a free copy of that? That copy of the magazine? I haven't gotten mine.
Yeah, I'm sure the guy wasn't being sarcastic.
No,
when he
I'm sure we were there. So
yeah.
Yeah. And of course, married to Halle Berry. So, yeah, professional
yes,
baseball
Mr.
player.
Halle Berry.
Married to Halle Berry. Rough life. All right. Also, this day in the year 2000, Pat Burrell, Pat the Bat, made his major league debut for the Philadelphia Phillies. Pat Burrell, in high school, was a quarterback where he once squared off against famed Expos draft pick Tom Brady on the football field. We'll have to look into this Brady guy, see if he ever did anything. Not sure what happened to him. But Pat Burrell won the College World Series Most Outstanding Player in 1996, despite playing for the losing team, the Miami Hurricanes. where
Wow.
he joined Dave Winfield and Phil Nevin as the only players to win the award for the losing team.
Wow.
So Hall of Famer and Angels manager, he joined there. 1998, he was the first overall draft pick for the Phillies, had a 12-year career, 9 of which was with Philadelphia. Let's see, he won 2 World Series during his career, one with the Phillies in 2008 and then with the Giants in 2010. He also won a World Series, so congratulations.
Yeah, and career-wise, only 8 home runs shy of 300.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. Them's guys. And then this one, Mark, might mean more to you and I than to a lot of our listeners. But in 2013, Jesus Sucre made his debut today.
Oh, Sugar Jesus.
Sugar Jesus made his debut in 2013. Now, if you're listening and you go, who? What? Who? Backup utility catcher. And I say utility catcher. He played 7 years in the big leagues, 4 with the Mariners, which is where you and I remember him most, 2 with Tampa Bay, 1 with the Orioles. Now, he did a couple of things of note. First of all, August 12th, 2015, he caught Hisashi Iwakuma's no-hitter.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that makes sense.
Iwakuma is bear.
Yeah, Kuma means bear.
But more than that, more importantly, I think, which more than importantly than catching a no-hitter, he appeared on the mound 6 times in his 7-year career.
Wow.
He was definitely the default position player to pitch in blowouts. And
I guess so.
He wasn't that bad either. Overall, 6 games he appeared, 5 innings, 12 hits, 8 runs. 14.40 ERA, which if you put position players, if they all pitched 5 innings, I'm going to say that ERA isn't too bad.
Yeah, I got to tend to lean that direction too.
He did give up a home run. He walked 2. He didn't strike out any, and he committed a balk.
Well, the nerve.
We got a balk called on us in our league this week, and I was
Did you
like,
really?
Yeah, I'm like, come on. It's a little much for a bunch of 50-year-olds running around out there, but nonetheless, those umpires sticking to the letter of the law. So there you go. Those are our debuts for today, May 24th, which is not May 4th. It's been 20 days since the Star Wars Day already. That's pretty incredible. But all right, so that's going to wrap up this edition of Debuts. Also going to wrap up our BP. I think we're completely stretched out, and we're going to go ahead and head right into the main part of our show, where, Mark, we have a guest today. We haven't done this for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have got an author is joining us. His name is Kirk McKnight. He's written a book about a lot of guys that we've talked about, and he's talked to actually a couple of people that we've talked to on this podcast. The book is called The Voices of Baseball, the Game's Greatest Broadcasters Reflect on America's Pastime. We had the chance to talk to Kirk a couple of days ago, and let's take a listen to Kirk McKnight. Welcome, Kirk McKnight, author of The Voices of Baseball. Kirk, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, really.
We'd like to get to know you before we get to hear about your book about baseball. So tell us, we like to ask, first of all, kind of where you grew up and who you grew up rooting for, both team and players, and why.
Well, I grew up in Las Vegas, but I'm considered a TBS kid, is the term. I mean, I listened to the Dodgers a lot and watched the Dodgers eventually, but, that was one of the first that were able to, come in. But me being a TBS kid, my favorite player growing up was Del Murphy. In fact, about 3.5 years ago, I wrote an argument for Del Murphy's legitimacy for the Hall of Fame, basically just like a self-published book that I released on digital, and, got some other people to give their 2 cents, including Bobby Cox and Don Sterling of the Yankees, who used to broadcast for the Braves. So that's my upbringing, was Del Murphy and the Atlanta Braves. And then when this is back in the 80s, so this was before we had access to things like MLB TV and extra innings and all that. So when Del left, my connection to him left, because then he went to Philadelphia, and like TBS wasn't going to follow Dale. They had to stick around and maintain with the Braves. So I lost my connection there, and became a Cecil Fielder fan a couple of years after that, and followed the Tigers. And Phil Simms situation, not really network situation going on over there in Detroit, on a national perspective. So they traded Cecil in the summer of '96 over to the Yankees, and I've been a fan of the Yankees ever since. But since writing this book, I'm honestly a fan of every team. I pay a lot of attention to certain players, especially fantasy players. But my favorite player today is Whit Merrifield, and I enjoy being able to see him more here in Arizona at spring training when he played for the Royals. But he got picked up by the Blue Jays, so bye-bye spring training Whit.
So you grew up in Las Vegas. Was there minor league baseball? Vegas has had teams throughout. I'm an A's fan, so we don't. Las Vegas is kind of a bad word here right now, but do you get to many minor league games there? I don't even know how old Cashman Field is, but I'm assuming that's probably where the Vegas Stars or whoever they used to play.
Right. Around the turn of the century, they changed the name from the Stars to the 51s. They still played at Cashman Field for a good another maybe 17 or 18 more years. And then in 2019, they opened up a new ballpark. It's probably one of the best ballparks, if not the best ballpark in all of minor league baseball. That's what's creating this, little bit of a conflict now that Vegas is going to be getting the A's there, because some people don't see the point in having the minor league team there as well as the major league team there. But the A's are going to probably be playing in that ballpark for a couple of years while that stadium's getting built. I don't expect Oakland's going to be sitting in Oakland until 2027. It's not. I don't see that happening. I think it's happened before. I've been to A's games at Cashman Field while they were building Mount Davis. The A's played some of their home games at Cashman Field. That was actually where I saw Cecil Fielder for the first time hit a home run. I'd gone to see him in California playing in Anaheim, and he never did it. And I just go maybe a mile and a half from my house, and there he goes. He hits a home run in Cashman Field. So, long story short, the ballpark in Las Vegas is incredible, and it's definitely worthy of entertaining a team of a major league level for a little bit. But of course, you always come into attendance as well, and that's kind of what the Arizona Coyotes are doing. They're playing in a college arena right now, and they're a major level team, and you got 5,000 seats. It's kind of a joke to the rest of the league.
Yeah, well, we won't talk about the A's situation here. It's a little...
Yeah, let's change the subject. I was just going to jump in. No, honestly, since we're going to talk a lot about radio announcers, I had a buddy who was the radio announcer for the Las Vegas Stars, John Sandler. And that is one of the funniest human beings you could ever meet in your entire life, I'm telling you.
John actually is the reason I got off to a good start on my book. John married my neighbor across the street.
No kidding.
And so when I learned that Ken Korak, who, is the broadcaster for the A's, used to broadcast for the Rebels at UNLV, I reached out to John, said, hey, I'm working on a project right now, and I haven't even done interview one, but I'm wondering, do you know Ken Korak? He says, I know Ken. And there we go. There was that first connection. And so, I'd say that John is the first person to get me in the room with somebody, I guess, to kick off this whole project.
That's awesome. John he used to pick on me, man, and not in a mean way, but in a practical joke way. He was, my job was in Tacoma, and I would put stuff up on the scoreboard for advertising and so on. And he got there before me one day. He had been looking over my shoulder. I didn't know he had been memorizing what I do. And I get there and the scoreboard's already up and running, and it says, "Welcome to spoiled lunch meat night." Thanks, John.
Still a popular promotion in Tacoma.
That best describes John Sandler.
There you go.
So let's talk about the book, The Voices of Baseball, the game's greatest broadcasters reflect on America's pastime. Why a book about baseball broadcasters?
Because I feel like if you're going to tell what the Voices of Baseball does and kind of share not only the differences between the ballparks and show the peculiarities of each ballpark, but, share the biggest moments. I think it's kind of like you hold your arm out and you say, well, no, I think that you are the one who should be doing this. It's, I'll give an example is, Wayne Hagen came into the Mets, and he's basically around the time that the Mets are saying goodbye to Shea, and he's sitting there like, I'm doing this final broadcast. What am I doing saying goodbye to Shea? So he kind of like opens his arm out to Howie Rose, like, do you want to do this? And of course, Howie Rose has been a longtime Met fan and broadcaster. It was a tremendous honor for him. And that's the thing. It's like, if you're going to have a goodbye to Shea, you're not going to have somebody that's basically just coming in their first year. What would be the point of me telling the people about these memories of these broadcasters or these memorable moments in baseball when there's somebody who is the storyteller for the team? And that's where I really got the idea for the book, is to explain the nuances, explain the things that make it unique, but also get the in-depth feeling from these broadcasters, the emotion that they felt, what was going through their heads, the temperance that they had to exhibit in some of these moments where they wanted to freak out and go absolutely nuts, but they had that discipline of being a broadcaster and having to kind of bring it back down a notch to temper themselves a little bit.
Your book is broken up basically into chapters, with each chapter focusing on a different team and their stadium, and then some broadcasters, generally always the home broadcaster and maybe one or two others, telling about some of the great moments at each of those. What do you consider the greatest baseball call of all time? Not just the moment, but the broadcaster that encapsulates that great moment.
I mean, not any one that I've ever heard, but from what I understand, Russ Hodges calling Bobby Thompson's Shot Heard Around the World is probably the most historic and memorable broadcast call of all time. Just going out the gates is one of the things we talked about. I mean, that's the one that everybody talks about. And if you think about, you'll see that everywhere. It's in movies all the time, and for me personally, thinking back of some of the moments that I've witnessed in baseball, I have to go with Scully calling Gibson's home run in '88, and I know, I'm sorry.
Why you gotta hate on the A's so much? There's certain things we don't talk about here. The '88 World Series in Las Vegas, and you've hit them both.
So here's well, I haven't hit all three of them, because the other call,
the Jeter flip.
The Jeter flip. There you go. Those are both. These are all
right, we're gonna wrap it up
in my
now.
book. Uh-oh. I think my time's up now. But when you think about the Scully call of the Gibson home run, that is one that really settles in and really kind of resonates with a lot of people. They just remember that, it's kind of like the universe aligning, because Scully had already been broadcasting from the World Series on a national level already. It just so happened to be a year that his Dodgers were in there, and he's not a homer by any stretch of the imagination. He's doing his duty as a broadcaster, calling the game and making that call. And he's been able to follow this team in a magical year, in a year that Oral Hershiser was doing amazing things, and the Dodgers themselves were doing amazing things. So it was just an amazing moment that kind of, obviously if the World Series ended on that exact home run, we probably wouldn't even question. We probably wouldn't even question if there was the rest of the World Series. If I were to tell some lay person saying, this is the home run that ended the World Series, they'd probably believe me, Mm-hmm. That's kind of a way to put a bow and a ribbon on a season like 1988 for the Dodgers.
Yeah, I'll let Mark answer too, but I think you kind of, when I wrote that question down, those were the exact two things that came to my mind. The other one being probably, the ball between Buckner's leg in '86. Those are really the three, because when I think of something that transcends baseball, I think, does my mom know what this is? And she definitely knows, the Giants win the pennant, the Giants win. I think it was in an episode of MASH that is probably one that a lot of people, heard that might not have known about it before. But I think those are my greatest. Mark, what would you put in there?
Well, thanks a lot for taking mine. I was going to say Buckner behind the bag. That's the one that comes to mind immediately. Just it's embedded in my mind from watching it that very night.
Interesting book, talking to the broadcasters about baseball, because I have done radio, and I was fortunate enough to do radio for baseball, and I love that. That was my favorite thing to do. I'm wondering for you, how do you consume baseball? Because for me, a lot of times I'll watch it unless I'm at the park. But I'll watch it. But fortunately, MLB TV has this great feature where you can watch the game, but you can listen to the radio broadcast. And I find myself doing that a lot. How do you consume it?
I do have MLB at bat on my phone. So a lot of times I'll check in and listen to the game. A lot of times I'll be listening to John and Susan do the Yankee games on WFAN. Especially if I'm driving. I love basically being able to just kind of have the excuse of I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to listen to the radio. I'm going to listen to this game when I'm driving into Phoenix or something like that. But I think one thing that I'm doing, more or less nowadays is trying to follow players a little bit more. I mean, we do have some serious gifts from the baseball gods. Shohei Ohtani is one of them. He plays on a crap team. But, I mean, the fact that he basically did in a 2-day span last year what he did in knocking in, I think, 7 or 8 RBIs one night in a losing effort and then striking out 13 over 8 innings, 8 shutout innings the next night, you're not going to see that again. Unless it's by him.
Wasn't that against the A's?
No, it wasn't. It was against the Royals.
Okay,
not everything in my book was at the behest of the A's, even though some of the points I'm bringing up are. But yeah, that was. And I had the good fortune of talking to Terry Smith basically the next week. Not even thinking about it. It just happened to be when I talked to him for the updated edition of the game, and he says, "Well, you picked the right time because of what happened last week against the Royals." How fortuitous that I didn't have this conversation with him a week and a half before, because then I wouldn't have his perspective on something that, both he and I think it was Goob. He leaned over to Goob or Lanks. I can't remember who his broadcast partner is, but he said, we are probably seeing something or the best 2-day productivity that you'll ever see in your lifetime.
You can say that pretty much anytime Ohtani is in the game at this point.
Yeah.
Just curious, did you yourself want to do any broadcasting? Is that how you got into maybe thinking about how the broadcasters are unique in their own way? And just curious if you ever wanted to do that yourself.
I've sat in a broadcast booth and kind of tagged along in a couple innings, just to promote the book a few summers ago. And it was like a Pioneer League game. And I'll tell you, even with that, I was sitting there nervous as all get up. So I don't know how I would do in the broadcast booth, honestly. Even appearing on some of the broadcasts I have, I appeared on a spring training broadcast this last year with Jesse Agler and Tony Gwynn Jr. And the pace that these guys go, I can't keep up. And I feel like I'm a person that a lot of people can't keep up with, or they tell me that, but and I can't keep up with these guys. So I'd be pretty overwhelmed to be sitting in that seat on live air.
Especially with the pitch clock now.
Exactly.
Makes me think about Vin Scully, and I'm glad he never had to call an inning with a pitch clock, because you know how he could perfectly time those stories out so that he wrapped everything up. He could take a whole inning to weave his story about Jackie Robinson ice skating, or, the plane that the engine failure and they spent a night in Sheboygan, or just some random thing that nobody but Vin Scully knows, and he can tell it in the most beautiful way. And regardless of what happens on the field, he describes everything that happens on the field, but he'll wrap that story up right as the third out is called. And thankfully, he never had to do that with a pitch clock, even though I love the pitch clock, but I'm glad we didn't miss out on some Vin Scully antidotes because of that.
There's an interesting story in the tribute chapter to Scully, and it was basically one of the broadcasters, I believe is Bill Brown of the Houston Astros. He said he remembered, Jerry Royce on the mound kind of kicking around a little bit, because he could tell with all the transistors in the ballpark and everybody with those handhelds up to their ears that Vin was telling a story. So he kicked around on the mound a little bit, saying, I think I'll let Vin finish the story. Maybe that's the power of Vin Scully right there.
It was more important that Vin get his story, and I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
So who's on your Mount Rushmore of announcers? And, of course, there are the Russ Hodges and, the people that we never heard do a game live. So let's just go from whenever you kind of fell in love with baseball till the current day. Who's on your Mount Rushmore of broadcasters?
Well, of course, we put Vin Scully at the top of that. That is A, because that's how the universe feels, and B, actually speaking with the gentleman was a great experience for me. Obviously, I also like John Miller. I like John Miller's ability to really just have the peaks and valleys in his calls. He has a calm voice, and he's able to talk you through a game, but he's also able to really hit the high notes when he needs to. When there's the emotion that's needed, he does excel at that. And you take a Hall of Famer like Denny Matthews, and I don't want to hear a bunch of flack from the Royals fans, but he's not the kind of person that has that peak and valley kind of way of broadcasting. Denny kind of is across the way, and he's a great broadcaster. I'm not trying to take away from it, but I do like the fact that some of these broadcasters are a little bit more emotive. So there you go. We got John Miller, you got Vin Scully. I'd have to put definitely in that area as well, Al Michaels. Because Al also is a broadcaster who is all over the grid. I mean, he's broadcast for baseball, he's broadcast for football, he's broadcast for you name it. Hockey. And of course, he's and my most memorable call for Al Michaels, I was talking about this in an interview yesterday, was when he called Roethlisberger to Santonio Holmes in the corner of the end zone in Super Bowl 43. Just that call as me as a Steeler fan at the time, when I actually liked football, and him winning the championship on that play, and Michaels being the soundtrack to it. I can't forget about that. And of course, a lot of people remember Al for Do You Believe in Miracles and the 1980 U.S. hockey team. So I would put him up there on that list too. And I think you'd have to have a dual head system with Doc Emmerich and Bob Costas for that fourth and fifth spot there, because those are two people I've talked to, and they're two people that I definitely have gotten the chance to really see how they do their craft, and it's very impressive to hear a broadcaster in hockey and the way that Doc does, and the way that Bob Costas is. I mean, I will use this as an opportunity to tell a story, like a pop culture story, I guess. The day after I interviewed Bob Costas, I get a phone call on my cell phone, and it's on mute. Luckily, I'm in church, and I reach in my phone. It's Bob Costas. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Bob Costas again. I mean, I talk to this guy, but it's Bob Costas. Do I send Bob Costas a voicemail, or what do I do? So I let the phone, ring out, buzz out, and I just quickly text him. I'm sorry, Mr. Costas, I'm in church. Is there something you need? He says, nope, Kirk, sorry. My mistake, accidental phone call, enjoy your day. And I thought, okay, well, I got to do this now. So I texted back. I say, are you saying I just got butt dialed by Bob Costas? I go, does it get any better than that? And his immediate text is, let's hope that it does. And if you can imagine Bob Costas, his way of saying that, it just made me laugh all day long. And I feel like whenever I talk with Bob, I feel like I should be taking notes, because he is just so poignant with his words, and he's just so full of information and full of, honestly, tutelage. So I definitely have to have him up on that Mount Rushmore.
Boy, I think my favorite Bob Costas baseball memory has got to be the Sandberg game. I didn't watch it live, but I have watched the entirety. We did a whole episode on it. There were so many stories going on with that, and then we call it almost the Willie McGee game, but no, it's the Sandberg game, and he did such a great job as people are breathing down his neck to wrap up this game. We got to go to this boxing match that nobody really cares about, but.
That was Bob's answer when I said, what's your most memorable game? So in the book, in the Wrigley Field chapter, definite expanded edition of that game, courtesy of Bob Costas. And I was 6 at the time, so of course I don't remember it. But him telling it, me realizing, that's around the time that summer that the Natural came out. So he's like saying, basically, we're seeing a real life Roy Hobbs in Ryne Sandberg.
Nice. I remember Saturday baseball games. This is back when, before we had all these great opportunities to watch baseball. You were lucky if you got to watch a game a week. And Saturday baseball was always Vin Scully and Joe Garagiola. And Joe had a big deal with people wiping out the back of the batter's box. This obsession. Every week he would talk about it. And I'm like, well, what are you going to do, Joe? There's nothing you can do about it, man. And poor Sap, I always felt bad for him because they weren't going to ever rectify this one huge, egregious issue he had.
My last question, Kirk, before we get to some baseball cards here, who do you think is the best? I mean, throughout the history of the game, former players coming in and being that number two. Some of them go on, like Bob Uecker, to be the number one voice and be the play-by-play voice. Who do you think, and maybe I just took the answer there. I mean, it might be Bob Uecker, but who is the best former player to transition in your mind?
Oh, wow. I mean, that's a tough one because, I mean, you got people like Tim McCarver and Mike Shannon who are, both of them are just, in fact, in this case of Mike Shannon, he just passed away over the weekend. But I mean, I think Tim McCarver takes that cake right there. Of course, Bob Uecker. The thing about Bob Uecker, though, is Bob, Bob was always so self-deprecating about his playing career. In fact, he said, I used to always be on the air with Vin and tell him I was sorry that he had to call games that I played in. So that is the esteem that Bob Uecker had for himself as a player. I feel like Tim McCarver kind of sets the mold or casts the mold when it comes to a former player / broadcaster. And it really comes out, and having him in the book and basically if anybody can remember back to 2001 World Series on the Fox broadcast, you got a former player giving his backup, his color commentary to Joe Buck and just saying something that couldn't have been as prophetic as it couldn't have been more prophetic, saying about how the problem with playing in with a pitcher like Mariano Rivera is he gets up and in on the hitters and they bloop to the farther parts of the infield. Sure enough, that's exactly what Gonzalez did. Probably in the next pitch or two, he does it, and that's how the Diamondbacks dethroned the 3-time defending world champions. And in that call, Joe Buck is high-fiving Tim McCarver as he's making his own call because Tim was right there. It's kind of like the movie Forget Paris, and they're talking about the beginning when Billy Crystal, makes that call right there. He says, he was too late on the shot, and Joe Montana's retelling the story, and he's saying, "Yep, right there, without any luxury of a video replay, he was right there. He made the call right there in the moment." And that's kind of like what Tim McCarver did, and I think that's where Tim McCarver is the perfect mold to cast for former players turned broadcasters because they have that ability. They know when to back up. They know when not to step on the toes of the lead, but they also know when their acumen is going to come in handy, and he certainly did that day.
I think that's a great answer. I think only one person might argue with you, and that's Deion Sanders. But
I was going to go there. I was going to go there too.
All right, let's go there.
So, Kirk, do you want to tell everybody how they can get a hold of your book, where it's available?
Yeah, my book is available online anywhere books are sold. The obvious answer would be Amazon. But if your listeners are into saving a few bucks, they'd save $11 off the cover price if they go to the publisher's website. That's Roman with a W, ROWMAN.com. If you use coupon code RLFANDF30, you get 30% off the book, and that gets you about $11 cheaper than Amazon.
Great. Well, we'll put all that in the show notes as well, so that
cool.
Anybody interested in that, it's a great book. I love how it's broken out. Mark and I were talking about it earlier, how it's broken out by stadium. It's the first one he went to was the Mariners. First one I went to was the A's. Then we both looked for Vin Scully, and then we kind of, it's not, you don't have to read it front to back. You can kind of pick and go where you want, depending on who your favorites are. So that's great. Do you have time to stick around and open up a pack of old baseball cards here and see what we can get?
I'm all about the pack wars. We used to do that back when I would go to the ball card store.
Yeah, so we call this is called Wax Packs Heroes, and what we do is we'll open up this pack. I've got a pack of 88 tops here, and we're going to open it up. We used to, I had an old Beckett, and we used to look up the prices and total those, but every card was worth a cent, so it wasn't a whole lot of fun at that point. So what we do is we're going to look at the Baseball Reference WAR of the year of the card. So in this case, 1988. We've got a couple of other rules as well. They're a little bit different when we have guests than when it's just Mark and I. But if they have anything on their face, meaning glasses, a lot of players had those huge science teacher glasses that they wore. Think of like Vance Law, who was on the show and made jokes about his own glasses. Eye black, flip down sunglasses, anything like that, you get an extra 10th point of war. If they're wearing real stirrups, where we can see white, or in the A's case, gold sanitary socks, that's an extra 10th of a point. But if they're wearing those 2-in-1s, which we do not like, minus a 10th of a point of war.
Oh, no.
If they've got sweatbands that have their caricature on it, the Mims bands, like Ozzie Smith or Daryl Strawberry used to wear, extra 10th of a point because that's cool. If they've got a mustache, because that was very prevalent then, it's coming back now, 10th of a point. But if it's like a Wade Boggs, Keith Hernandez, Tom Selleck, like a beauty, 2/10 of a point of war. And if there's a Hall of Famer on the card anywhere, you get a whole extra point of war because they're in the Hall of Fame. So if we look at our leaderboard for guests, we've got another author that is on top, John Vampatella, who is a Red Sox fan, so you guys might not get along. He's got a 31.8, which is a really good score. Then we've got the voice of the El Paso Chihuahuas and another author, Tim Haggerty, at 30.5. Dave Dravecki, through a great game, he's got a 24. Rick Riz, who you talked to, voice of the Mariners on the radio, 22.1. And Bobby Valentine came in with a 21.4 to top our top 5. So we're going to go ahead and open up this pack, and let's see what we've got. So hopefully if you've got any stories or memories of any of these guys, feel free to jump in. We're going to start off with Royals. This guy's nickname was Skates, I believe, and he was on some of those Atlanta Braves teams. It's Lonnie Smith.
I like the name Lonnie. I always liked the name Lonnie Chisenhall. I thought that was the best player name, and I think he's still playing. But now Jazz Chisholm, Jazz Chisholm Jr. is now my new favorite baseball name. So always down for a Lonnie.
So let's see. Skates played for 17 years in the big leagues, most of it with Atlanta and then Philadelphia and St. Louis. In 1988, let's see, with the Braves, he hit 237 and 296 on base, 3 home runs, 9 RBI, 4 stolen bases. And all of that will equal a WAR of 0.6. So you're in the positive at least. And he does have a mustache on here. So you're going to start out with a 0.7, which for us is... Whenever I play this game, I'm in the negative right away. So that's a good thing. All right. Next card is a pitcher for the Cardinals. It's John Tudor.
John Tudor. That name I recognize.
And a lot of times Mark has nicknames, Berman nicknames that I don't remember for these.
I'll throw it out there if I can think of it.
All right, so John Tudor, 12 years in the big leagues, 5 with St. Louis, 5 with the Red Sox. In 88, he split time between St. Louis and the Dodgers. Overall, he went 10-8 with a 2.32 ERA, 192 innings, 87 strikeouts, and that is good for a WAR of, 5.2. Whoa.
Nice. Big score.
Wow.
Of course, 88, being on the Dodgers, he also got, unfortunately, a World Series ring that year. Fortunately for you, though, he's got some real stirrups in this baseball card as well. So that'll be a 5.3, and you're off to a good start.
It helps when you recognize their name.
Yeah,
right.
When we were growing up, we collected cards religiously at this point, and I knew everybody on every one of these cards now, and I think Mark is the same way. Now we look at him and we're like, who is this guy? But
yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, here is a guy that. Well, this can be interesting to talk about. He was with the Mets here. He was on the 86 team that won the World Series. It is Wally Backman.
Wally Backman. That's out of Vegas right there. Wally Backman managed the 51s for some time.
Oh, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I don't know if you've seen it. He managed an independent league team in the South, and they did it's on YouTube. They did a series following him around the entire season, and it is crazy. He is a character.
Was it part of that Banana League?
No. This is probably from the early 2000s, but he gets ejected from. I can't tell you how many games he gets ejected from.
Oh, I can imagine.
Let's see. 14 years in the big leagues, 9 with the Mets. This was his final year in New York. Hit 303 with a 388 on base, no home runs, 17 RBI, and that is good for a WAR of 2.9. Now, if we look at this card, he has got flip down sunglasses, he's got real stirrups, and he's got a mustache. So you're cleaning up here. That is a 3.2 for Wally Backman. All right, next you have got a Hall of Famer. So this is good news for you right away. Probably known best for putting pine tar on his bat, which he's thankful for, because then everyone forgets about the hemorrhoid incident, but it's George Brett.
This is going to shoot me to the top, isn't it?
It's going to get you some good points, I think. Let's see. George Brett, a.k.a. Mullet, which I don't know how I didn't know that nickname. I think it was in your book when I was reading it yesterday that I saw that nickname. And I thought to myself, I did not know that. And then look at what we got here. George Brett, 21 years in the game. We're not going to tell you who he played for, because if you don't know, you should turn off this podcast right now. Good news for you. Let's see. In 88, he was an all-star. He hit 306, 389 on base, 24 home runs, 103 RBI at age 35, 14 stolen bases.
Wow.
He stole 14 the next year as well, and finished with 201 in his career. Not bad. Not something I think about when I think about George Brett. And that is good for a WAR of 5.2.
Wow.
He is an all-star, so that, or a Hall of Famer, so that'll be 6.2, and he's got real stirrups on, so that will be a 6.3.
That's one of the beautiful things about the book, if I can throw another plug in there, is you got somebody like Denny Matthews, who was on the call for the 85 World Series, winning and all, and he's on the call for the 2000. Well, technically wasn't on the call, but Ryan Lefevre was on the call, and Denny got his little, basically as gracious as he was, letting him, because it was his turn. It was Ryan's turn in the extra innings, and they knew it was basically, they hadn't even used Wade Davis yet, and they're up by 5 runs, and he turns to Denny, he's like, what do you feel about me doing it? Denny, as professional as he can be, says, it's your inning. I mean, I haven't done this in 30 years. He didn't say that, but it's your inning. So graciousness abroad with these broadcasters.
Mark and I have both met several of the people that you've interviewed as well. And they're all, I mean, we'll talk baseball to anybody. So it's great when you get to hear somebody that's got these stories and are willing to share them like that. Let's see, your next card, you're at 15.5. So you're already halfway there. Very nice. Next card here for the Dodgers, outfielder John Shelby.
T-Bone.
T-Bone?
Yes.
I see his full name is John T. Shelby. T period. Like Mr. T is his middle name, I guess. Just T period. Let's see. John Shelby, 2 World Series rings to his credit. One with Baltimore in 83, and then why do the 88 Dodgers? I mean, why do we have to keep bringing them up? But let's see. John Shelby, 11 years in the big leagues, 7 with Baltimore, 4 with the Dodgers, and 2 with Detroit. 1988. For the Dodgers, he hit 263, a 320 on base, 10 home runs, 64 RBI, and that is a 2.5. Plus, he's got a mustache and he's got real stirrups on, so that'll be a 2.7.
Wow.
For T-Bone.
I'm getting help from the bench here.
Yeah, these are, except for Brett, you're getting some good chunks from some.
Role players. That's what I was looking for. Yeah. Shelby, by the way, first round draft pick by the Orioles in 1977. All right. Next, you have got, he's not a Hall of Famer, but he certainly had a good career. Pitcher for the Expos, El Presidente, Denny Martinez. El Presidente.
Author of A Perfect Game against the Dodgers. Denny, 23 years in the big leagues, 11 with Baltimore, 8 with Montreal, and then a whole bunch of others. 1988 with the Expos, 15 and 13 with a 2.72 ERA. Wow.
Unbelievable.
235 innings pitched, 120 strikeouts, and that will equal a WAR of 3.0. He's got a mustache here as well, so that'll be a 3.1. All right. Next, wow, this guy must have been 704 in 1988, but here he is, pitcher for the Royals, Gene Garber.
Oh, wow.
I don't think we've ever pulled Gene Garber in any of these packs.
And what a tragedy that is.
Yeah, this is 200 plus shows, and this is the first Gene Garber sighting.
Wow. Garber started in 69.
Yeah, debuted in 1969. Geez, I think he debuted in black and white. Let's see, 19 years in the big leagues, 10 with Atlanta, 5 with Philadelphia, and then KC and Pittsburgh. In 1988, his final year as a 40-year-old, he went 0-4, but only a 3.58 ERA, 32 innings pitched, 20 strikeouts, and that is a WAR of .2 still. Plus, he's still
on the plus side.
Yeah, plus he's got that Garber beard, and he has got real stirrups, so that'll still be a plus .4. I think he was traded for Babe Ruth at one point.
I think Ryan even said, "What's going on, old man?"
Yeah, I don't think he was traded for Babe Ruth. I thought honestly that it was Hack Wilson, just because I like to bring up Hack Wilson as often as possible.
I wish I could talk more about Hack Wilson.
Yeah, he comes up pretty often in the show. Now, this is a guy that I do not remember. Expos catcher outfielder Dave Engel. And by the Crickets,
what's the spelling on that? I feel like I'm in a spelling bee. What's the spelling on that?
Engle.
Okay, I was going to say if it was Engel, he knew somebody for NBC, and that's how he got the slaw. So
yeah, I was going to say it's not Peter Engel,
right?
Who, by the way, did make a guest appearance on Saved by the Bell at one point in the anti-drug episode with Johnny Dakota, I believe.
He produced it. He said, "I'm going to be on it," and they're like, "Okay."
That's way too much Saved by the Bell information to be able to pull off the top of my head. Let's see. For Engel, 9 years in the big leagues for somebody that we don't remember. 5 with Minnesota, 2 with Montreal, 1 with Detroit, and 1 with the Brewers. In 1988 with Montreal, let's see, hit .216, a .310 on base, no home runs, 1 RBI, and that is a minus .1 WAR.
Did he make up for it in the aggregate, though? How's his stirrups? How are his mustaches?
He's just sitting in the dugout, staring off in the distance, wondering how Saved by the Bell is going to do without him.
That reminds me of my Del Murphy card for the Phillies. It's part of my collage here, and I'm like, yep, that's pretty much representative right there of your last years there, buddy.
So this one will give us something to talk about because this guy's got a statistic named after him. Here he is, first baseman for the Red Sox, Sam Horn.
Nickname, the only thing I can think of is Big Sam Horn.
Well, now this is one of the cards. Well, this isn't his rookie card. Oh, this is his rookie card. I have a ton of these stashed away somewhere because this was going to pay for college while I was in college. Right. But yeah, this was one of those rookies that was gonna be the next big thing. First round draft pick by the Red Sox in 1982. Ended up playing in the big leagues for 8 years. 3 with Baltimore, 3 with Boston, then Texas and Cleveland. In 1988, 24 games, he hit 148, 2 home runs, 8 RBI. That is a minus .4 for Sam Horn. Now, he does have a mustache and he does have real stirrups, so it'll only be a minus .2.
You going the wrong direction?
Now,
I know. I started out hot.
Yeah, now, I don't think we don't give pop culture reference points in this version, but having been known as 7 strikeouts is the horn aplenty. 6 strikeouts is just known as the horn in one game. But that after Sam Horn. Let's see here. All right, so you're down to, you got 4 cards left here. You're at 21.4. You are tied with Bobby Valentine at this point. So let's see if you can surpass him here. This guy, I remember he pitched for quite a bit. I think he got traded a lot at the deadline for contenders. As pitcher for the Phillies, Todd Froworth.
With an F.
With an F, yep.
Wasn't he like a submarine pitcher?
That's what yes. Yeah, here's a picture of it. Absolutely, you're correct. Let's see, Todd Froworth, 9 years in the big leagues. Philly for 4, Baltimore for 3, and then Boston and the Angels 1 apiece. In 88, he went 1-2 with an 8.25 ERA, 12 innings pitched. Let's see, 11 strikeouts, and that is good for a WAR of minus .5.
Wow.
Bobby Valentine jumps back into 5th place. Nothing on this card is going to help you out either. It's just another posed shot down in spring training for Todd Froworth. So in your mind, I guess Todd is not worth Froworth much in this game. Oh, apparently he passed away in 2017, unfortunately, from cancer. Wow. I know we haven't mentioned this name in a while. I'm not sure how much he's going to help you here. Pitcher for the Yankees, Bill Gullickson.
Oh, wow.
The fact that I recognize him is something of a plus.
I remember a lot of these Yankees from the late 80s because Ricky was on the Yankees, obviously, at that point until 89. So I remember a lot of these guys. Nicknamed Sugar, common nickname for pitchers, led the league in 1991 with 20 wins.
Wow.
For the Tigers. In 88, though, bad news for you. He missed 88 and 89. He did not pitch in the majors. Let's see. Was he hurt? He was in Japan. He played for the Yomiuri Giants for 2 years in Japan, where he went 14-9 and 7-5. Looks like he had some good years there, but we do not count that. And there's nothing in this card that's going to help you out. So you're down to
0.
Yeah, you're down to 2 cards, but I think you're going to like this one. And this fits right in with you. Speaking of former players that have gone on to be successful in the booth, one of our favorites on this show, we did a whole episode. I think we did an episode on him. I'm fairly certain we did. It is none other than the captain for the New York Mets. It is Keith Hernandez.
There you go.
Just heard him today watching the first game of the doubleheader with the Mets and the Tigers. So this would be big points for you if we played by the rules that Mark and I play by every week, because he was on Seinfeld, obviously.
There you go.
The baseball player with the most appearances on Seinfeld, with technically 3 episodes, because the boyfriend was technically a double episode, and then he was in the finale as well, though he did not speak. Mex played for 17 years, 10 with the Cardinals, 7 with the Mets, and then that one final year with Cleveland in 90. 1988 with the Mets, 95 games, he hit 276, 333 on base, 11 home runs, 55 RBI, and that is good for a WAR of 2.2. Now, the good news for you is he's wearing real stirrups, really great stirrups. He's got a mustache, and he's got flip-down sunglasses. So nice. This is it. I can't give you 0.2 of a point on the mustache. It's not the full like 86 kind of bushy one, but it's still there. So that'll get you a 2.5 though.
What about the Newman reference though?
No,
nice game, pretty boy.
Yeah, we don't we don't do the pop culture reference when we have guests. But yeah, like I said, you get a 0.5 point for pop culture references unless you were on The Simpsons, Seinfeld, or Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
There you go.
But yeah, Keith Hernandez, and one of my favorite announcers. I just listen. I watch the Mets almost every night just for their booth, because he and Ron are so great.
I mean, am I wrong in saying that Ron sounds exactly like James Woods, as if you're listening to James Woods call a baseball game? Am I wrong?
I have a hard time telling the difference between Ron and Keith. Their voices to me sound exactly the same, but I don't get that, but I probably will now. And
now you can't unhear it.
Yeah, now I'm not going to be able to unhear it. Thanks a ton. Let's see. All right, so you're at 23.4. So you've you jumped past Rick Riz as well with that, and you trail Dave Dravecky by 0.6 of a point. And your final card is a catcher for the Minnesota Twins, Tim Laudner.
In 88, in 88, 87 is when they won the World Series. Never mind. So I was trying to go back to Dodgers 88 and Twins 87.
Laudner, just about that year is when he lost his starting job to Brian Harper.
Well, get this, though. In 88, still an all-star. Huh. Yeah. Let's see. He spent 9 years in the big leagues, all of it with Minnesota, until, Brian Harper came around. Let's see. In 88, he hit 251, a 316 on base, 13 home runs, 54 RBI, and that is good for a WAR of 1.1. He does have real stirrups on here, so that'll be a 1.2. And that will bring your grand total to 24.6, just getting by Dave Dravecky.
Not a bad score.
Yeah, that's a really good score. Anything over 20 is considered good in our book.
Well, I figure the more, because this is going to be brought up on your next podcast, and that's just another opportunity for people to say, who the hell is Kirk McKnight? And then I think I'll Google him. So there we go.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah, so there it is. There is Wax Packs Heroes, 24.6. You are now in third place. Our top three are all people who have written baseball books. So that says something.
It is a game of pure skill. I mean, we know this.
Yeah,
that's right.
That training really paid off. We can tell. Well, Kurt, thank you so much for joining us. Again, we will put all of the links and the discount code that you were nice enough to provide in the show notes. If you want to maybe say them again, but again, if anybody is listening to this while they're driving the car, please just continue staring straight ahead. And you can always look it up in the show notes as how to get Kurt's book, The Voices of Baseball. And you want to tell them one more time and where they can find you on social media or anywhere like that as well?
Yeah, at The Voices of MLB, with MLB all in caps. That's my Twitter handle. The Voices of Baseball on Instagram. Usually anything I post on Facebook will probably trickle its way over to Instagram and Twitter. And The Voices of Baseball is a Facebook page as well. So you can find me any one of those major three ones.
Great. Well, those will all be in the show notes. And Kurt, we really appreciate you jumping on, and thank you very much. Mark, this was fun. Good to have you back, man.
Hey, it's good to be back, sorta.
Well, if this is your most pressing thing going on, then
yeah, I'll survive, without the pampering.
Yeah, well, I mean, your team gets to start a 4-game series or something with the A's at home, so.
Yeah. I have
soft landing.
Reservations against baseball. Will get you when you start making predictions.
It's the A's. It's the A's, my friend. All right, so
all right,
we'll let you get on to that sweep. And hey, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you coming back, even when we take an unscheduled break. We don't usually take those during the season, but sometimes stuff comes up. So we appreciate everybody listening to us each week. If you want more of us, you can also find us on the internet. We're at 2 Strike Noise on all of the socials. Just Google it, look in the show notes. It's all there as well. We've also got a email address that, though it is in the show notes, it's really become a thing where people get upset if they don't hear Mark tell us the address.
That's right. It's what is it again? I'm just kidding. 2 Strike Noise, spell it out. TWO Strike Noise @gmail.com.
I'm just glad that you finally have graduated so you don't go, it is https://www. We appreciate that.
Yeah, I started that way. Yeah. But you taught me better. Yeah.
All right. So that'll do it for this week's show. Thanks once again to our guest, Kirk McKnight. Thank you for spending a little bit of time with us. That was fun to get to talk with you. And everybody else, thank you again for listening. We'll do it again next week on the next episode of 2 Strike Noise.
Thank you. God bless you. Have a great day.